Hello, cheeselog. That is a name, a very weird name for a logger that I've built. I've been using it for quite some time. It's basically a logger with some fancy additional features. And I finally found some time to also put this into an NPM package. And Hannes, since I know you actually don't enjoy reading the readmes, you could actually read it here. I'm gonna quickly walk you through the main features and show you how it works. So as said, it's a logger and it supports some basic logging levels. For now, it's these 5 levels: log, info, debug, warn, and error. And yeah, let's jump right into it. I have some dummy web app example demo application here. The code of it is actually in this visible in this IDE. And the first thing that I did here is doing the cheese config, and I'm passing some empty configuration here, so there's nothing specific happening. And yeah, if you look back into the browser, you can see the logger is properly initialized, and you can also see some details about the environment that the logger is running in at the moment, because that's one of the special features. You basically know if you're running in a mobile app or if you're running in a browser, like it's the case right now, or if you are on Firefox or rather on Chrome, right? So based on that, you can make the logger behave differently, which is kind of helpful, especially when it comes to, for example, coloring messages. So that's the first thing I'm actually gonna show you right now. So let's just put an example logging message here. Let's say hello world and save this. The output would be like this. It shows twice because my application is actually kind of running the function twice. Very beautiful, right? But it serves its purpose. So you can see the logging message here. What we would like to do though is we would like to change the behavior of this logging message or the outcome, and a very easy way to do this is to change the very first prop, the very first argument of the function, to be an option argument. So we can basically, whatever option you define globally for the entire cheese logger, you can override it for individual logging messages. To do so, you need to use the underscore log function, because with that you're telling the logger, okay, I first want to override the config in some way, and only then the remaining arguments would be some arguments you actually want to log, right? So I told you about the coloring. So one example to do this, you actually need to import the cheese colors here, is using the option argument here and saying, okay, I want my message to be in this color. So if you save this again, you can see this very fancy colored message here. The cool thing about it is that the cheese log actually by default comes with a configuration that, for example, would disable all the coloring on Firefox. Why? Because Firefox actually does not support ANSI colors, and if the color codes would not be bypassed in that scenario, then you would see all those very ugly strings. You can also actually see it described here. So that's how the logger would actually behave if the mechanism was not included, but thank God it is, so it actually would look like that. Yeah, that's one interesting aspect about this. You can also do the opposite. You can provide the argument, the overriding option argument, as the very last argument, basically. To do this, you would use the opposite function, so to say, so it would be log underscore, and then it behaves the same way. So you can again see that Of course, if you would use the normal log function, just an example to demonstrate this, the logger would log all of this as classical objects, right? So you would see the two string arguments being logged there and finally the option arguments there. It's just a classical object in that case, and that's not what we want. The same goes for all the different logging levels. Actually, you can use it with info, you can use it with debug, with warn, and with error, and all of them also have the underscore functions available. And another neat feature, because it's already being suggested right now, if you are somebody who likes colors as much as I do, you can even use the built-in coloring functions. You could, for example, say, yes, I would like to do some debug printing, but I wanna see my debugging message in green. So that would be the same as just configuring it with the option argument to use the color override in green. That's a bit faster, I guess. So if we refresh this page, you can now see we have a debug message, which is by default colored in like a pink, with a pink background. And the message itself is then printed in green. So we can do another one in blue, and beautiful, right? Again, also these functions you can use with underscores in front or in the back. You can also see TypeScript complaining because it expects some kind of overriding argument. What kind of options do we actually have? There are quite some. One of the first I will show you is, what are we gonna look at? We can define a max string length, for example. We could say, I don't want to see any strings that are longer than 10 characters. So if you do this, the blue debugging message should actually shorten or truncate the strings automatically, and that's also what's happening right now. So 10 characters are being displayed normally, and then it's cut off. And the second argument, it only consists of 4 characters, so everything's fine here. The same also goes for more complex nested objects. So if you have some complex nested object, and you have some string inside here, like this, if you refresh this, it would also work inside there. So not only is the whole message still printed in blue because we use the debug blue function, but it also truncates the string inside the object. Another interesting option, let me remove the string truncating thingy, but let me instead add some depth limit. So right now we would limit how deeply nested the objects would be printed. I limit it to 1 level, and now you can see the object that it actually prints is basically cut off, or summarized by this object statement here. And that's a very handy feature I regularly use because sometimes you just don't want to see an entire nested object that is, I don't know how big and how deeply nested. We talked about truncating strings. Let's talk about truncating arrays. So that's the same. If we have some array here, let's add an array here with some integers inside maybe. We limit the maximum array length to 3. Therefore, you will automatically see that the array gets shortened automatically. And of course, this also again works inside nested objects. Let me refresh it. Yeah, there it is. Sorry that it also always gets printed twice. I know it's a bit confusing, but I should have taken more time to prepare for this walkthrough. Hannes, sorry. Everybody else, very sorry. Right, if you would actually use a normal debugging function without the blue coloring, you would see that it tries to automatically also colorize certain things. So the integer numbers are being printed in this reddish color. This coloring actually comes from the util.inspect function that it uses under the hood. Let me maybe also add some string inside this nested object. Then you can see that the string color is green, while the array shortening thing is red, and also the integer numbers are like this. So yeah, could be quite helpful. Next thing I would like to talk about is maybe the table printing, which is also very helpful. All you need to do is actually provide an array of objects that all have the same object keys, so to say. So because the object keys actually represent the individual columns. So you could say 1 here, and column 2 would say 2. And what is he actually complaining about? We don't have a direct table function, of course, but we have some log table function. And let me also remove the hello world on top there. Let me refresh this. Then you can already see we have some example table. So as said, these are the two object keys, call1, call2, and then you have the values in the next row. What you can also do is, of course, add more data entries. 5 and 6. No, not 6, sorry. And then it would look like this, which is very handy. If you would add another prop that does not exist on any other data entry, then the whole thing would complain that the table data is actually not valid. And it also tells you some details on why it is not valid. Similar to the colors, this is a predefined function. So instead of doing that, we could also just use the log function and override the configuration and say table true. So this is the exact same thing. Besides that, there's also some table options available. So we could, for example, say the header separator should be an equal sign and the row separator should be, I don't know, some slashes. I don't care. Let's look at this. So the table would then look like this. And I think, yeah, that's the most important stuff. You could also, instead of strings, you can also include some very deeply nested stuff here. And everything that was valid before, like without using the table actually, is still valid even inside the table. So for example, this auto coloring of strings is also happening inside an object that is part of a table cell. Or if we would also say, I want strings to be shortened to 2 characters, then even that would take place inside all the table cells for all the strings. So you can see all those strings are now shortened, even the ones that are inside this nested object in this table cell. What else? Yeah, I talked about overriding configurations without actually mentioning the global config. So whatever you set up initially for the cheese logger is valid for all the succeeding logging messages, of course. So you could, for example, say all the objects should always be limited to 2 levels maximum. If you want to change this in any message later on, you can still override it for individual messages and say, okay, for this I want the depth to be 5. Right. What else? If you do not do any config in the beginning, then the whole application, let me refresh this, will only log warnings, basically telling you what's up. Namely, you have to use a cheese.config statement in the beginning, otherwise it will refuse to log any messages. What you also can do, by the way, is you can do the initial configuration, you can do some logging afterwards, and you can also change the global configuration at a later point in time. So you can say, okay, from now on, all the messages should be limited to object depth of 5. If you do that, you get another warning saying global config has been changed. This might be a mistake. Right. Also, those warning messages can be disabled within the configurations themselves. So I think it's report global config change and report initialization. Yeah, they are both booleans. If you don't want to see it, cut. Talking about not seeing stuff, another thing I want to show you is actually the fact that you can disable certain log levels completely in certain environments. So for example, imagine you are deploying an application to production. You maybe want to hide all the debug messages. To do so, you just provide a function, and this function actually comes with a log level, and this log level is actually of type log level. And you can say if log level equals debug, return false, otherwise return true. And yes, we can of course improve that statement like this. And if you do that, you would not be seeing any debug messages anymore right now. So if we do some example messages, let me clear all of that. Some log message and some debug message, and we refreshed the whole thing, you will only see the log message but not the debug message because it's not being printed. And the cool thing in this kind of function, you can then of course, for example, check things like the process.env.node.env and say, well, if that is production, then I want to hide log level debug. You get the idea, I guess. Yeah. A very interesting thing, by the way, in case you saw the YouTube short, I added some nice chocolate drops, and they are still here because actually I don't like them because they are too sweet. Anything else? Yeah, the core of the entire library actually is the formatMessage function. This formatMessage function actually gets a lot of parameters in. Let me quickly check you the example, show you the example actually here. Where is it? It looks like this. So you have all those things you can work with. One of the most important things, of course, is the message itself. And then also the who object, which is providing info about which browser you are on, which operating system. If it's a mobile app, blah, 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 all those things I showed you in the beginning. And you can take all those things and format your message accordingly. The default function would be this one. You can look it up on the README. And you can adjust it according to your wishes and requirements. Yeah, all of the, or almost all of the arguments that you can actually provide to the config function, they are always either simple arguments like the depth might be a simple number, or you can also provide a more complex function that actually returns a number in that case. Why is this helpful? Well, it's helpful because, and I'm gonna show you again in the README, where is it? Context dependent. Sorry for the, yeah, it's that one. So you can actually also again here check the who object, checking which is the browser I'm currently running on, or is it a browser at all, which is the operating system, and 1,000 other things. And you can then, for the depth example, for example, you could then say, if it's Firefox, I want to limit the depth to 3, otherwise I want to limit it to 10 or whatever. So it's basically that's a valid statement for all the individual props. So no matter which configuration you actually want to use, you always see those context depending values, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. So everything that's configurable here is either a basic value like a string, a number, or something like that, or you can also provide a function that knows about the current environment, and then you can make decisions based on that. Yeah, that's also how, for example, we by default make the distinction between Firefox ignoring all the colors, while Chrome, for example, would print the colors. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, you can just use it and discover it on your own. You can go through the README. I just know that Hannes is a lazy, but everybody else, just go here. And if you want to use it, classical way to use it, npm yarn, or even pnpm, which I have not documented here. Just install it and use it. Don't forget to do the initial config call, and then you are free to log your logging statements. Anything else I forgot about? No. Yeah, there are quite some examples even online. So if you click this link at the very bottom of the README file, you can actually see an overview of some code examples. So if you, for example, want to check the, I don't know, how the string shortening works, you can open this and check it out online. And then just make sure that you open the console of the browser itself and not the console of StackBlitz, and then you're good to go. You can already see how it works, and it's all based on the code that's provided on the left hand side. You can change it and yeah, use it as a playground basically. That is it, I believe. Thanks for your attention. If you have questions, just ask. You know where to find me, and if you have improvements, ideas for improvements and stuff, open a PR or just let me know. Maybe I will adjust it accordingly myself. So have a nice one and bye.